She showed up to my house, dressed like a magazine cover. Coral blouse, cream pants, heels not meant for walking, hair that looked like she'd had it done by one of those YouTube girls that charge by the strand. She wore everything like packaging. He came with her, carrying a bottle of wine he couldn't pronounce, and smiling like somebody who'd been practicing his lines. Said, "Nice to finally meet you, Miss Ora," with that low, churchman voice, the kind that carries confidence almost too smooth. Now, I've been on this earth long enough to know when a man's eyes match his mouth, his didn't. His smile was stage ready, but his eyes? Cold, calculating, like a man in a room full of mirrors trying to memorize what angle makes you like him most. Tyler opened the door for him and tried too hard. "This is Langston. Lang for short. Langston." One of those names you pick up after reading one black poet and convincing yourself you're deeper than you are. He said he was in commercial design, brand solutions, to be exact. Had 3 LLCs, a side contract in Dallas, and a team scattered across the coast. Let me tell you something real quick. You ever meet a man who explains what he does but still don't actually say what he does? Yeah, that. We were sitting at the dining table. Food I cooked that afternoon: baked chicken, cream corn, cabbage sautéed in garlic and onion. He looked at the plate like he didn't know food could steam before it hit the table. She fussed over him, fixing it just right. And Lord, my granddaughter Ania leaned in real close and whispered to me while watching him cut into the cornbread. "He's real clean. Too clean." Out of the mouths of babies. Dinner was halfway done when Tasha asked him a question a real man would have knocked out the park. "So Langston, or Lang, what made you notice her?" He put his fork down, dabbed at his mouth, with my good napkins, like we were at a steakhouse, not my home, and said, "She's the kind of woman who knows her worth. I think that's sexy." Now, wait. Let me translate that line for y'all. That's not an answer. That's a deflection wrapped in deodorant and sunglasses. You ask a man why he loves her, and if the first thing he mentions is her worth, that means he already started calculating. I didn't say anything. Some lessons don't need a teacher when the clock's already ticking. But still, you ever feel truth bite the back of your neck like a wind? Invisible, but dead certain? That whole evening, she sat next to him like a student in love with her professor, kept looking to him before speaking, like she needed approval baked into every sentence. After they left, my whole kitchen smelled like tension, that stiff kind. Tasha helped with dishes, hair pulled into a bun, sleeves pushed up. She looked at me and just said what we both knew. "He's fake." I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. She asked me again, "Mama, you don't like him?" It happened right before the vows, not 10 minutes to go. Bridesmaids were still bustling around like hummingbirds in silk. The florist was fixing ribbon that had already been fixed twice. Music getting tested through those tiny rental speakers. And me, Ora Mae, I was over in that little side room next to the chapel, buttoning up my niece's dress like I had when she was 7, getting ready for her Christmas recital. Except this time, she was about to walk down the aisle and marry a man nobody knew well enough, but everybody praised too much. Her dress was tight in the back, buttons lined like pearls on a string. She kept fidgeting, sucking in, adjusting the straps that didn't need no adjusting. I leaned in close, real quiet, and I just said it, gentle as I could. "You sure about this man, baby?" She froze, hands stiff by her sides. She didn't answer right away, just let out this high sigh like I was a country preacher asking too many questions during altar call. And then, Lord. She turned, her whole body twisted sharp, and she looked me dead in the face. "You always do this," she said, loud enough for the makeup artist to stop dabbing and look up. You always come around token mess, waiting on somebody to fall so you can be the first to say, "I told you so." It ain't cute. Now, I was used to folks disliking my timing. Wisdom don't always walk in when it's invited. Sometimes it pull up unannounced in work shoes. But that child was looking at me like I was the storm, not the umbrella. So I said again, lower now, just for her. "I'm not trying to ruin your moment, baby. I got a feelin'. Deep." That's when she slapped me. Open palm. Clean. The sound bounced off the stained glass in the window behind me. It was so quiet after. I could hear her maid of honor let out this shocked little wheeze like she couldn't decide whether to faint or flee. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't touch my face where it stung warm in the shape of her hand. I just looked at her. And I said it, soft enough that only the ones leaned in real close could hear me. "Go on and get married, baby. I'll just be right here, waitin'." That's when my sister Dolores clapped. "Y'all." She clapped. 2 slow, mocking claps. "The whole family came unglued 'cause Ora decided to play prophet again," she chuckled. "You always think you know, don't you?" They laughed. The bridesmaids, the fake friends, even the caterer poked his head in and smirked like it was funny. But the groom's best man? He didn't laugh. Didn't flinch? I made a mental note. There was something in the way that boy looked at the ground, like it was about to swallow him whole. And Tyler, my nephew, he wasn't in the room yet. If he had been, Lord knows. But sometimes God waits to show you things when he knows you can't unsee 'em. That slap didn't just break skin, it cracked something else wide open. And that's where I need to take you. Back before the dress fittings, back before the RSVP cards, back before the man with the mirrors for eyes showed up with just enough charm and just enough money that everybody forgot to ask what exactly he did for a living. 'Cause the truth was already there. It just wasn't shining enough for everybody to see it yet. Right after she slapped me, I left the chapel room without a word. My heel caught on the rug. They'd laid it cheap and decorative. But deep color, blood red, no less. And I thought, isn't that just like the Lord? Crafting little metaphors right into polyester blend, flooring nobody looks at twice. I sat down on one of the patio chairs outside, half-undone gardenia corsage sliding on my wrist. The grounds were stone and fake luxury, looked fancy in the camera, but up close the flowers were wilting in the sun. Landscape dressed up in lies, just like that wedding. I could still hear laughter inside. They thought I'd leave. But I wasn't leaving. I was waiting. The mother of the groom, bless her curled up heart, came out to check on me. She wore a hat the size of Nebraska and smiled like her face might crack if she used it too hard. "Miss Ora," she said, syrupy and fake-sounding as a dollar store greeting card. "You all right?" I looked at her like I'd been looking at folks since before she bought that church smile. "I will be." She held her clutch tighter and went back inside. That morning had been too quiet. Something about the way the groom hadn't greeted anybody, the way he made his mother look nervous, like she'd memorized a script but skipped the truth. Tasha had asked why I looked so serious. She was fussing over napkin colors earlier in the week like that would make or break a marriage. And I told her plain. 'Cause this don't feel whole. It feels staged. Tasha didn't want to hear it. Told me I was turning into one of those aunties that always find rain on a good day. Lord, they called me rain when really I was the roof. The reception tents were up already. I saw the photographer, same one from Sister Carol's baby shower, setting up lights like it was a movie set. He waved. Poor man didn't know he was about to be snapping shots in the middle of somebody's sorrow. Back inside, The music shifted from gospel violin to Beyoncé cover, performed by a quartet they flew in from Atlanta. Yes, sugar, Atlanta. Your girl had money to spend, or so she thought. I got up when I heard the hush follow the bride's entrance. I didn't want to see her walking down the aisle. Not because I was mad. No, I was heartbroken. But baby, you wouldn't believe it if I told you. When she hit the aisle and locked eyes with him, he didn't smile. He didn't even flinch. He just blinked. Like seeing her in that white dress wasn't even anything. In that moment, I didn't think, he don't love her. That would have been too easy. I thought, he don't see her like a wife at all. He's seeing a transaction. And sweet Lord, I wanted to shout. But you know when it's too late and too early at the exact same time? That's what it felt like. I sat next to Mr. Harmon. Yes, baby, that Mr. Harmon. And he leaned in with his warm cedar cologne and said under his breath, real low, "Want me to say something?" I shook my head. Not yet. And when I turned to look across the pews, folks whispering, fans waving, Mama's baby asleep on somebody else's shoulder, I spotted the one thing that told me everything. Some vendor, maybe the event coordinator, maybe the crowd control guy, whispering in the groom's brother's ear at the edge of the vestibule. They looked panicked, like something was already happening and the bride hadn't even said I do yet. That's when I knew the clock had started ticking. You ever seen the whiskey in a man's eyes before he's even had a drink? That's what that groom had. Dry shame. But baby, just wait. Because right after that, somebody ran out the back of the chapel, and the music stopped cold. The silence was so heavy you could hear the fear-buckling knees across 5 generations of witnesses. And me, I leaned back in that pew and whispered, just loud enough for the Holy Ghost to hear. Told you I'd be right here, waitin'. Silence poured into that sanctuary like molasses down a cold spoon. Thick, slow, felt like everything holy in that place had held its breath at the same time. The quartet set their bows down slow, trying not to move too fast, like speed might break something else. Voices hushed into a murmur under people's breath. An old usher wiped his forehead like the devil had just walked into the building, and nobody noticed but him. And the bride? She stood there like someone unplugged her spirit. Still at the start of the aisle, veil pinned just right, chin up, bouquet shaking just a little in her left hand, but makeup heavy enough to mask anything that wasn't pure. Her mama rushed up behind her like she could sweep the tension off the floor with her shoes, whispering something in her ear as the groom stepped down from the altar stairs. Not toward her, toward the door. Lord, my hands were folded in my lap, one thumb tracing the edge of my corsage. But I was counting steps, watching everything. He stopped just shy of the side corridor where the vendor had run off to earlier. Whispered to the best man, who looked like he was going to be sick. Nobody moved at first. Then somebody up front, maybe Sister Lucille, coughed and said, real quiet, "What's going on?" The question hung like smoke after fireworks, and all of it was paper thin, ready to rip open. And rip it did. You ever see a secret try to stay hidden when it's being dragged out by its ankles? That's what happened when the 2 police officers came through the front door. Not in full uniform, but the kind of presence the spirit recognizes before the eyes do. That heat built into their step, that hush-hush urgency that don't announce itself until it's too late. The room scaffolded into gasps, stacked on top of whispers. Everybody did that thing where they pretend like they're not looking, but they are. The bride's hand lowered half an inch. Her smile, frozen in place, didn't move an inch, just her eyes. Her eyes lost their grip right there on the middle step. One of the officers whispered something to the venue manager, who turned white. She bolted. Then the organist stood up from his little stool so fast he nearly tipped his bench. He'd gone too. Meanwhile, the groom. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't protest. Didn't run. The cop on the right said something nobody else would have caught unless they were leaning in. But I heard it. Because I leaned in. "Mr. Darrell L. Maddox," he said. "Now here's the wicked part. That ain't even the name the bride recited when they first announced the engagement back at revival season." He gave this fancy name, Langston Maddox Arlen III, something extra, like a man trying too hard to sound like old money. But Darrell L. Maddox? That sounded like unpaid child support and 2 storage units full of linen suits he ain't own outright. The preacher put one hand on the podium. The groom looked to his left at the best man. Poor child looked like his tie was strangling him, and said something real quiet. Couldn't make it out. But the best man nodded, pulled something from his inner suit pocket, and handed it over. They call it voluntary surrender. He handed himself over. Not a flinch. Not a word to the woman he was about to marry. And she never even stopped smiling. That's what chilled me deepest. Her face held in pose like it hadn't loaded the new information yet. Like her brain was buffering trying to catch the signal after the tower already fell. Because y'all know what it's like when a face tries to keep looking pretty while the whole foundation underneath it turns to ashes. That's what I saw. It wasn't until the second officer flipped open a little folder and showed it to the wedding coordinator, who had quietly come back like a cat too nosy for its own safety, that the pieces really started moving. "Venues closed," coordinator mouthed. Then she said louder, "The reception has been canceled." All hell broke loose in whispers. I stood up. Lord forgive me, I didn't want to gloat. Truly, but I looked that girl dead in the eye, my family, my blood, and in the gentlest voice I got, I said, "You may kiss the ground beneath your feet, baby. 'Cause the only reason you ain't riding in that cop car beside him." I didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. Tasha stood on the other side of the aisle, hands to her mouth, not crying, just watching me. She mouthed something I didn't catch, but the look on her face? It was the first time in years she saw me as something other than country, other than stuck in my ways. She saw me, finally, as correct. Across the aisle, my sister Dolores sat with legs crossed and a lemon twist of a smile wrinkling at the corners. She had the nerve to whisper to her friend, "That girl should have stayed out her business." I turned just slow enough for my earrings to catch the sunlight. And I said, not to her, but loud enough for everybody invited and uninvited to hear, "You know what the worst part is?" Nobody answered. "The worst part," I continued, "ain't that I got disrespected? Ain't that she slapped me in front of y'all? Ain't that she told me I wasn't wanted when all I came to give her was a warning I prayed she was wrong about?" I took a breath, calm, long, careful. The worst part. She knew. She felt it. She just ain't want anyone else to see it before she could put enough glitter on it. And then, baby, she dropped. Bouquet first, bottom lip trembling, fell straight into her mama's lap, and the hush returned. Not stage hush. Not wedding you. That was funeral hush. The kind that drips slow through your bloodstream. I looked down. My phone buzzed. Text from Joy. "Girl, tell me why Channel 9 got the story first." Of course they did. One of the videographers leaked footage already. The live photo stream, meant to showcase a fairy tale wedding, now uploaded clips of the man being led away with gold cufflinks, freshly shining under steel clasps. And Little Miss Bright America? Front page gossip blog body, face caught mid-crack, right under the headline. Wedding Day Whiplash. Who is Darrell L. Maddox really? I walked outside into that heavy blue sky. Lord, it was so pretty you'd never think ugly things could ever happen beneath it. But that's the trick. The sky is always watching. And it don't care who it claps for. Mr. Harmon followed me out 5 minutes later with that look. Hands in pockets, quiet mouth, but it was his eyes that told me. He believed me. He always did. You want a ride home? He said. I shook my head. I got one. I'm just toking my time. He nodded. You knew something, didn't you? I smiled, not proud, just tired. A woman always knows when another woman's spending more time convincing herself than listening to herself. We both looked back at the church as guests started running out clutching programs like they'd witnessed a fire in Moses Bush. Police gone. Photographers gone. Illusions gone. But me? Still here? Like I said I'd be. Waiting. By the time she brought him to that first dinner, she had already convinced herself he was perfect. And that, right there, that's when I started worrying. It takes more breath to defend something than to celebrate it, and baby, she was out of breath. She showed up to my house, dressed like a magazine cover. Coral blouse, cream pants, heels not meant for walking, hair that looked like she'd had it done by one of those YouTube girls that charge by the strand. She wore everything like packaging. He came with her, carrying a bottle of wine he couldn't pronounce, and smiling like somebody who'd been practicing his lines. Said, "Nice to finally meet you, Miss Ora," with that low, churchman voice, the kind that carries confidence almost too smooth. Now, I've been on this earth long enough to know when a man's eyes match his mouth, his didn't. His smile was stage ready, but his eyes? Cold, calculating, like a man in a room full of mirrors trying to memorize what angle makes you like him most. Tyler opened the door for him and tried too hard. This is Langston. Lang for short. Langston. One of those names you pick up after reading one black poet and convincing yourself you're deeper than you are. He said he was in commercial design, brand solutions, to be exact. Had 3 LLCs, a side contract in Dallas, and a team scattered across the coast. Let me tell you something real quick. You ever meet a man who explains what he does but still don't actually say what he does? Yeah, that. We were sitting at the dining table, food I cooked that afternoon, baked chicken, cream corn, cabbage sautéed in garlic and onion. He looked at the plate like he didn't know food could steam before it hit the table. She fussed over him, fixing it just right. And Lord, my granddaughter Ania leaned in real close and whispered to me while watching him cut into the cornbread. He's real clean. Too clean. Out of the mouths of babies. Dinner was halfway done when Tasha asked him a question a real man would have knocked out the park. So Langston, or Lang, what made you notice her? He put his fork down, dabbed at his mouth, with my good napkins, like we were at a steakhouse, not my home, and said, "She's the kind of woman who knows her worth. I think that's sexy." Now, wait. Let me translate that line for y'all. That's not an answer. That's a deflection wrapped in deodorant and sunglasses. You ask a man why he loves her, and if the first thing he mentions is her worth, that means he already started calculating. I didn't say anything. Some lessons don't need a teacher when the clock's already ticking. But still, you ever feel truth bite the back of your neck like a wind? Invisible, but dead certain? That whole evening, she sat next to him like a student in love with her professor, kept looking to him before speaking, like she needed approval baked into every sentence. After they left, My whole kitchen smelled like tension, that stiff kind. Tasha helped with dishes, hair pulled into a bun, sleeves pushed up. She looked at me and just said what we both knew. He's fake. I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. She asked me again, Mama, you don't like him? I don't know yet, I said. But my stomach does. And it don't like nothin' today. Still, I ain't saying not then to ruin it. Not yet. Because what if I was wrong? What if this was just my fear wearying yesterday's dress? What if this girl really found someone and I was just the one too old to see it? But trust don't whisper in images. It shows up in patterns. Like the time Dolores called me 2 weeks later and said the engagement party costs jumped by another $4,000. Not that we can't cover it, she said. But Lang liked other options better. He didn't explain why. Didn't offer to pay. Didn't adjust anything. And that's when I told her, Dolores, I love you. But your daughter is planning a party that ain't got no price tag. That ain't cute, that's credit. Oh, please, she said. You just don't want her pulling ahead. That's what this is. You don't like how confident she became when she got with him. Let me tell you something. Confidence built on illusion is just expansive insecurity. She hung up. A week later, Joylene came over for coffee, wearing one of those bonnets with attitude stitched right into the edge. You've seen this? She said, opening her phone to a blurry but unmistakable Facebook post. Lang, dressed in a navy double-breasted suit, seated at a table in a casino, arm around a light-skinned woman, same tattoo, same ring. Caption said, "Too bad I had to teach you the difference between love and leverage." It had been posted 2 months ago. Now, sure, that could have been nothing. Could have been shade. But my bones said different. You know what happened next? I sent it to Tasha and told her to check the EXIF data. She said, Ma, I'm confused. Why are you doing this? But she did it anyway. 3 weeks before they'd announced the engagement. Same ring on that woman's finger that now sat on my niece's. That night, I stared at pictures of that man and thought, he'd used that same diamond roadmap more than once. Wherever he was headed, he'd gone there before. And he left wreckage. She had no idea. Because she ain't see the tracks under him were muddy. What came next? Made me question whether I'd stayed too quiet too long. The mail came late that week. I opened it to find a down payment request addressed to Mrs. Lang Maddox. It was for a condo. Not their condo. A second one. Under her credit. Under her name. First payment already posted. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter 3 days before the bridal shower like it knew it was carrying sin and wasn't proud of it. Cream-colored, thick stock, one of those monogrammed envelopes that says money was spent here in every fiber. But when I opened it, it wasn't an invitation. It was a loan offer. Under her name. Approved. Requested by Lang Maddox, co-signed by my niece. Supposedly for a joint business venture expanding brand outreach into physical retail. I ain't never seen so many pretty words stacked on a lie. It said he planned to open a private suite showroom in Atlanta, specializing in high-net-worth clientele, with his future wife as financial backer. Only signature on that paper was hers. Not one dime of his listed. Just her. Just my niece. Used like roofing nails in somebody else's ladder. Now, baby, I don't have no MBA. But let me tell you something my husband taught me before the cancer got him. If a man's name ain't next to yours on the line asking the world for money, that ain't a partnership. That's a purchase. I sat with that envelope. Watched the afternoon light shift on my countertop, until it hit that one detail I couldn't let go. The mailing address it came from didn't match the one Lang had given Dolores. That little slick-talking man had two addresses. One in Atlanta, one in Charlotte. Same name on both. Different P.O. boxers, both filed under different company shells. So I called my friend Denise, works in records, sharp as a nail and nosier than a preacher's wife at Easter dinner. She pulled up registrations on each LLC. "Girl," she told me, "the address attached to the Charlotte one? It's a UPS box, not an office, not a building, a mailbox. One of them little 3x5 slots you rent for $27.99 a month." That's when the shaking started in my hands. But not from fear, from knowing. From every instinct I'd learned, raising children and burying a husband and surviving a world too cold for soft hearts. Those signals were lighting up like a Sunday pew full of crooked deacons when the preacher calls on tithes. I called Dolores that night. She didn't pick up. So I left her a voicemail and said only this: "Dolores Lynn, if you trust me even 1 inch, we need to talk privately. And if you bring that man around again before we do, then don't call me when it all crashes. I saying this out of love. That's all." She called me back 3 hours later, defensive straight from the ringtone. "You always trying to run everything. I love my daughter. You think I'd let her marry someone shady? People change. Money makes sense when you look at the full plan." I didn't holler. Didn't puff up. Just said quietly, "So you saw the offer?" "What offer?" "The condo loan with your daughter's name on it, the second mailing address, the fake business pitch. You signed off?" Silence. Then static. Then the call ended. The next time I heard her voice was at the bridal shower. Up until then, I prayed harder than usual. Not the soft kind of praying I did during thunderstorms or long waits at the doctor's office. No, I mean the niece and old linoleum, pillow clutching, foot witching kind of prayer. The kind where you say, "Lord, if I'm wrong, make me loud and foolish, but if I'm right, then give me the strength to carry justice without screaming." The bridal shower was held at the golf club over in Ridge Point, where half the wives thought Target was a personality type and the other half used foundation. 3 shades to light because they believed in filters more than the mirror. Everything was lavender and gold. It smelled like overdone perfume and approvals. When I walked in, heads turned. They tried to smile like I wasn't the one folks were whispering about out their side mouths. You ever see a group of people smile at you like they just finished laughing about you? That? Dolores didn't speak to me. Just nodded. The bride was floating around the room in a tulle monstrosity with heels too thin for walking that much. One of those dresses that needed its own zip code. Every time she turned, a bridesmaid scrambled to gather fallen sequins, like the gown was trying to get away from her. Then Langston walked in. Late. No apologies. Just a pair of brown designer sunglasses on his face and a smile on his lips like he'd already won. A man who always enters like he already knows how the chapter ends. He kissed her on the cheek, whispered something in her ear, and she laughed real loud. Just a touch too loud. Fake. That's when I made the choice. A line in my chest just drew itself. I walked over to her table and tapped her glass twice with my ring. Soft, like a warning knock on a locked door. She looked up with that same tight smile from the wedding. "Auntie," she said. Sounded polite enough, but she still hadn't called me in days. "Can I speak with you privately?" Langston tried to intercept. "Nah, she good. We abuta cut the cake." I looked him in the face for the first time, straight on. And I smiled. The cake can wait. He ain't smiled back. You see, confidence built on lies don't stand when the wind of truth gets close enough to breathe on it. She followed me just outside, where the patio overlooked the 12th hole. That's when I gave her everything. The paper. The addresses. The business partner in Charlotte, who also owned a bridal boutique and had already left. 3 comments under her man's old Instagram posts, tagged #MyExLiar. She didn't take the folder from my hand. She barely looked at it. Where did you even get all this? Does that matter? Of course it matters. You spying on me? I stepped close. Not angry. Just grounded. I ain't spying, baby. I'm investigating. There's a difference between suspicion and stewardship. Then her face launched into full attack mode. You're jealous. That's all. He's younger, fine, successful. Nobody ever looked at you the way he looks at me. And it's eating you up. I stood there, hands calm, face still. She threw the folder down. Pages scattered like wedding doves in the wind. And I said, steady now. When you done talkin', I'm still gon' be here when it breaks. I ain't sayin' this to win. I'm sayin' it to give you the chance to see without blood in your eyes. You want me to be miserable, she shouted. You always have. I waited, let it land. Then just once, soft as a back porch breeze, I said, no, I want you to be safe. She didn't respond. She just walked away in those glittery heels that were already leaning sideways, shoes that weren't made for storms. Paper scattered behind her. Frozen truth now blowing free. The morning of the wedding started pretty, too pretty. Sky the color of worn linen. Sun hitting the windows just enough to make the white chairs on the lawn sparkle like somebody polished EM with good intentions. Birds chirping like they got paid. And me? I was sittin' at the hotel desk in my robe, looking at my reflection through a magnified mirror, wondering if today's the day that everything I said finally echoes across a room full of people that never wanted to hear it. I curled my edges just a bit. Light powder, soft lipstick, same earrings Jim bought me when Anaya was born. Classic. Nothing drawn attention. They never expect the quiet ones to hold the thunder. Got dressed slow, like I was walking toward a war but didn't want to seem too eager. Navy blue chiffon, modest neckline, hem that brushed just past the knee, pearls, no shine. No flash. Just clean. When I walked into the bridal suite, I wasn't there 10 seconds before I felt it. That tension nobody admits but everybody's wearing like perfume too strong. There she was, in the middle of the room. White dress with more volume than a gospel choir, veil like a cloud trapped in sugarnet. She turned slow when she heard me. No smile. Just that expression, folks, where when they've done made up their mind and they prayin', you don't say the one thing that could break it. Hi, Auntie, she said. I nodded. Morning, baby. One of the bridesmaids didn't even make eye contact. Another just clutched her phone like it was attached to her bloodstream. I took my seat near the window, right by the vanity. I didn't plan to talk. Not yet. My words were carrying too much weight that day. I knew if I opened my mouth too early, it might tip everything. But Lord, even silence has a sound. And the air in that room, it was hummin' with denial. I watched her laugh fake lovely with her makeup artist. Watched Lang walk in the back door and deliver a kiss that landed on her forehead like a postmark official, but cold. And I felt myself rockin' inside, like my spirit was sittin' in a porch chair in a hurricane. Tasha pulled me aside when it got closer to ceremony time. Ma? She whispered. What if you're wrong? I didn't move my eyes from the vanity mirror. Then I'll cry later. But if I'm right? Silence. Tasha's lips pressed tight. You ready to lose everyone over a hunch? I turned my head, slow. This ain't a hunch, baby. This a confirmation. Feel it in my stomach, my spine, my shadow. She looked down. Tasha had always been logical. Needed proof in paper and powder. The chapel filled with people dressed like peacocks. I sat front row, near Mr. Harmon, who gave me a peppermint. He said, "She looks beautiful." And I whispered, "Almost makes you forget the storm behind her eyes." The altar was covered in white flowers and gold candles. Lang stood tall, looking like pride hiding its shakes. During the prelude, he stepped behind the curtain briefly. Returned smiling, as if victorious. The bride, my niece, walked down the aisle, her steps leading toward ruin. A whisper spread through the pews. Plainclothes police were present. Lang's eyes flickered, then showed defiance. The ceremony began quickly, with vows exchanged. She spoke of forever, while Lang made a speech instead. As applause erupted, another cop entered slowly from the back. The presence of Lang transformed the wedding into a scene of chaos, without uttering a single word. An officer quietly approached the officiant, interrupting the ceremony, which resulted in panic and hushed conversations among the attendees. Lang was escorted away, leaving the bride in a state of shock. Guests remained engaging in speculation and capturing the event on film. The bride's mother stood motionless, while the bride sat in a state of despair, her makeup deteriorating under the weight of betrayal. Just blank. That's when Dolores turned. Her eyes snapped to me like a dog, remembering where it buried the bone it wished it hadn't. You, she whispered. I tilted my head just a little. That's all. Didn't need to raise my voice. Yes. You did this, Lord. The urge I had in that moment to let every word I'd once swallowed come out like thunder was heavy on the tip of my tongue. But I looked her in the eyes with the calm only God teaches women like me to carry, and answered slow. No. I warned you. You've been trying to tear this family apart. No, I said, still calm. Truth tore it apart. I just held the flashlight. And that's when she cracked. Dolores stood straight up and slapped me. In front of God, family, and two waitstaff leaning in from the hallway. Her hand caught the same side her daughter's had. Like mother, like daughter. But this time, I caught her wrist before it fell. Gently, but firm. And I said clear, steady as oak in a storm. That's the last slap this family's ever gonna use to hide from answers, Dolores. She froze. We stared eye to eye longer than I could count. And the room? The room was dead silent. People don't really know how to handle power when it comes in the form of quiet women who don't fall over. Mr. Harmon took a step forward. I saw it from the corner of my eye, but he stopped. He knew I didn't need rescuing. I let go of her wrist like it was made of burnt ropes, and I sat back down, as calm and regal as a woman who's been called a prophet and a problem in the same breath. They cleared the guests out 15 minutes later, canceled the reception well, tried to pretend it was postponed until further details unfolded. But baby, ain't no cake slice in the world gonna sweeten betrayal. People were still in the parking lot when reporters showed up. Not local news, national gossip coverage. Turns out, Lang, or Darrell, depending on which name his ex-fiancés knew him by, had several pending wire fraud investigations across 3 states, multiple aliases, and at least 2 shell companies opened under women he'd been engaged to. Each one had the same pattern. Grand romantic gestures, fake business deals, personal loans, unsecured credit lines, flamboyant weddings, disappearing acts. And when he showed up with a ring for my niece, he already had a plan for how to make it her debt. How many missed it? Plenty. How many ignored it? More than I care to count. And me, I watched it all unfold from the seat I refused to leave. Because the story needed a witness. Tasia found me under the portico 2 hours later. She still had her hair pinned up, hands dusty from helping gather what was left of the reception folders. Glitter on her elbows. She looked at me like a student ready to apologize. But I didn't need her guilt. "I'm sorry, Ma," she said. "I should have listened." I took her hand in mine. "No, baby," I whispered. "They all should have." We walked in silence toward the parking lot. Half the decorations were already blown into the hedges. Streamers hanging like limp prayers, rose petals scattered under tire tracks. The fantasy had been trampled. And standing by my car, in creased trousers and scuffed brown dress shoes, was Jameson the groom's cousin. He looked like a storm survivor. Tie loose, jacket draped over one arm. And when he looked at me, he didn't blink. "You knew," he said. "I did." He nodded slowly. "I hoped you were wrong." I hoped the same. Then he said something that stuck. I think he knew it was cumin. The way he smiled when they came in, he looked relieved. I didn't answer right away, just said more to myself than anyone. Some sinners sleep better once they get caught. The lies don't weigh so heavy after. He nodded again, then left without saying goodbye. Later that evening, Dolores showed up on my front steps. She didn't knock right away, just stood outside with that stiff back posture Southern women use when their pride been hit but they ain't ready to admit it. When I finally opened the door, she said nothing. Just looked at me like she saw all the things she'd tried not to believe were possible. "My baby," she whispered, like the pain started low and rolled up her throat. I didn't know. I invited her in, sat her down, made her tea because that's what you do in the South, even when you're hurt, even when you're furious, even when you're right. I poured honey without asking and slid the mug across like a peace offering tied in steam. "Do you believe me now?" She broke. Real tears. Not the kind folks manufacture for drama. I held her hand while she shook. Because love don't stop just 'cause someone did hard things with it. That night, her daughter stayed at a hotel hiding from press, from family, from herself. My phone buzzed just past midnight. It was a text. One line. From her. I didn't listen. "Can we talk?" I replied with one word. "Yes." Monday morning came pink and too quiet. The kind of pink that makes you think the world forgot half the things it did the night before. Like the sky's trying to apologize for what happened under it. I was already up before the sun made it over the treetops. Sitting in my kitchen again. Same spot. Bible open. Coffee old and cold. Head bowed. Not praying out loud, but my thoughts were loud enough the Lord could surely hear M. My phone was already bouncing with alerts by 6:30. Fake fiancé arrested at high-profile wedding. Channel 9, Channel 4. Online blogs with names like stealingwives.com. Screenshots. Freeze frames. YouTube thumbnails with my niece's face halfway behind translucent tears and clickbait titles like, "She married a monster," and said, "I told you so at the altar." They made her the meme. Baby, they made me the villain. One blog post labeled me the bitter aunt who destroyed the ceremony. destroyed. My words were mercy. But that's not what scandal tells the camera. It tells stories that turn sharp women into knives and desperate women into clowns. She texted me just after 9. Can I come over? I replied with the porch light already on. 15 minutes later, I opened the door and there she was. Still in the same sweats from the hotel, face bare. Eyes swollen from a cry I hoped didn't try to pretend it was something else. She came in without Eskin. Sat at the old kitchen table we always used to make Sunday dinner plans at. This time, no plans. Just silence. I slid a plate of toast and fruit in front of her. No questions. Just comfort. She put her face in her hands. And the sound that came out. Baby. It wasn't just crying. It was a crack. I believed him, she sobbed, finally managing words. I believed everything. I signed a car lease I didn't need. I opened a joint card he said was for emergencies. I transferred savings. He said I was supposed to trust him. And I sat there. Let her fall. Still, real felon ain't when your body drops. It's when your hope hits the bottom. She looked up at me, eyes red like early dawn. You hate me now? I didn't say nothing for a moment. I just reached over, took a folded paper napkin, placed it in her palm gentle. That's not what I carry, I said. I carry grief, not grudges. You thought you loved a man? That's not a sin. But baby, I paused, looked her in the eye. You denied a truth that didn't ask to be loved. It just asked to be heard. That's where things cracked. She nodded slow, like her neck was relearning motion. Then she whispered small, like a child. He ruined everything, Auntie. No, I said. He tried to, but what he broke ain't who you are. It's just what you built while forgetting to protect the builder. Phones started buzzing on the table between us. Dolores' name. She reached for it, then stopped. Should I answer? That's still your mama. I let her slap me 'cause I knew pain don't always come out clean, but you pick your own timing. Don't let nobody rush your healing. She let the phone ring. We sat longer. I buttered toast. Passed her a warm cloth for her eyes. Didn't rush her speech. Didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. She reached into her purse slow, pulled out a white envelope with my name on the front, handwritten. I was going to give you this at the reception, she said. I opened it while she looked away. Inside, a letter and a check, $500. With thank you for being hard on me scribbled at the bottom. But it was the letter that made my throat tighten. I don't always show it, but I hear you. I just want you to see the woman I've become. I want to make you proud. I love you even when I pretend I don't. I folded it back, careful like it was linen at a funeral. Baby, it's not your job to impress me. It's your job to trust yourself enough that you don't keep picking men who try to outshine you. She started crying again. This time, relief. Tonight, the world was burning her name through hashtags and hot takes, but right here, she was safe. Mr. Harmon came by mid-afternoon, brought collards and sweet tea like it was Sunday. Tasha came by with Anya, who gave her cousin a bag of cookies she baked with too much vanilla. Dolores texted again. No cussin' this time. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. We didn't respond yet. That night, we turned the news off and played dominoes. I let her win 1 game, then whooped her the next. We laughed. Not loud, but real. And when she stood to go, she hugged me so long it felt like she was trying to say sorry with her whole chest. Right before she left, she turned in the doorway, asked, Auntie? HM. How do you walk through this world like you already survived every storm? I smiled. Because, in a way, child, I have 3 days since the wedding. 3 days without press conferences. 3 days without church folks sliding their little holy shade through text messages and group threads. The heat of it all cooled. But sometimes, the heat ain't the danger. It's what grows in the silence after. My niece stayed with me. We'd been living slow, the kind of slow that heals. The kind of slow that rewinds real life back from a place you didn't know you were slipping into. Late night shows with the volume low. Toaster waffles and coffee for dinner. Quiet tears in the hallway when she thought I wasn't listening. She was still shultin sometimes. But she talked more now, asked questions without planchim, talked about going back to school, said something about learning real estate, said she needed power of her own next time. I said, that's how you know you on the right road. Baby, not when you're strong again, but when you want to build something. Then came the knock. Wednesday, around 10:15 in the morning. I was slicing pears. She was folding laundry. Anya was in the den humming along to a show she wasn't really watching. 3 knocks. I knew it was her before I opened the door. Dolores, dressed nice, like Payne didn't have permission to get on her sweater. Makeup light this time. No lashes, no earrings. Just eyes full of things she hadn't said out loud yet. We locked eyes. Didn't say hello. Didn't fake it. Ain't thought I'd see you stand in here, I said softly. I almost didn't come, she said. Why now? 'Cause I realized I was standing on pride while my daughter sat in shame. I backed the wrong man. What crushed her wasn't just him, it was me. I let her talk. Some things you don't interrupt. I told her he loved her like a king loves a queen. Truth is, he loved her like a conman loves a cover story. You tried to believe, I offered, voice just above a whisper. No, I tried to win. I wanted to prove folks like you wrong more than I wanted my baby to be safe. And there it was. The real truth. Not just about her. About a lot of M. People ain't just ignore the red flags, they resisted them. Thought if they dismissed the warnings hard enough, maybe the fire wouldn't burn. But fire don't ask for permission. It just runs. I stepped aside. Told her to come in? She paused. Looked shaken, but relieved. My niece stood up from the couch just as she walked in. Total silence. Mama and daughter. Standing 5 feet apart, with 5,000 pounds of disappointment, pain, love, guilt, and years between them. And for a minute, I wondered if they'd just cry, or scream, or pretend again. But the girl just threw her arms around her mama, buried her face in that sweater, and said one thing. I thought you didn't believe I was worth saving. And Dolores wavered. Knees looked uncertain. Then she squeezed tight and said, through quiet tears, I didn't believe I was wrong. Now I know that's worse. I stepped out the room. Some wounds need to close without a crowd. I sat back down with my pear slices and let the rest of it unfold the way it was always meant to between people who were ready to finally heal. Later that evening, the final truth came. It started with a knock at the back screen door. Joylene, hair tied, nostrils flared. You need to sit down, she said, already half inside like cousins do when news drives them faster than manners. She had a folder in her bag. Loan documents. From an unsecured lender in Atlanta. Except this one. It was from 6 weeks before Lang ever proposed. Signed by my niece. Copenbive, Dolores. $15,000? filed under startup development collateral. That's when the air changed. In the whole room. I called Dolores back down, handed her the folder. And the look in her eyes told me everything. You knew, I said, quieter than even I expected. I knew he had debt, she whispered. You helped open the credit. I thought if we got in early, it'd pay out. He said I'd be returned 10 times over. I didn't think it'd hurt her. You signed her name. I thought I could make it right before the wedding. You lied to her. Then let her fall. She dropped into the seat beside me like her own bones betrayed her. That was the real betrayal. The daughter she thought she was protecting? She'd already used her. All to win a man she also feared would walk away if he didn't get what he wanted. My niece left the room when she found out. Quiet. Didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Sometimes silence slaps harder than an open hand. Dolores stayed on that chair for an hour. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat inside the mess she co-created. Later, I sat beside her and said something that wasn't easy to say. Forgiveness don't mean you deny the wound, baby. It means you admit you made it, and you still show up to clean it. She nodded. Whispered, I'm sorry I slapped you. I took a sip of cold sweet tea and replied, one day, when you're ready, I'll let you apologize for not listening. Till then, just stay close this time. She stayed. And when she offered to help with dinner that night, I let her. Not because she earned it, but because tear-streaked mothers who finally show up deserve a second-round end. Not always a new seat, but a crack in the door, so they remember what home sounds like. Even when they were the ones who tried to lock it from the other side. 2 weeks after the wedding, the flowers were still hanging on in the front yard. They shouldn't have been. We'd already had a snap of cold that browned the leaves on the east side of the neighborhood, but the ones under my front window? Still bloomin'. I took it as a sign. We were all still standing. My niece was up early that day, brewing coffee like she'd always lived here. Barefoot in the kitchen, hair pulled back, soft robe trailing the floor. She looked like herself, finally. Not the version she tried to impress a man with, not the curated woman with curated woes. Just herself. And there's a peace that comes over a woman when that mask finally falls and don't gotta be picked back up again. She sat across from me with her mug between her hands, fingers curled like prayer. I want to do something with this pain, she said. Not just cry about it. I want it to mean something. I nodded slowly. Good, I said. Then that man didn't win. She didn't flinch anymore when we talked about him. She didn't cry unless she meant to. Maybe I'll start a support circle, she said. There's a whole Facebook group full of women he's done dirty. We could build something good. That ain't maybe, I said. That's purpose. I told her it was all right to be mad sometimes. You don't have to live in anger, I said, but don't erase it neither. That fire, it burns a path clean when folks been walking in circles too long. That afternoon, Dolores came over with groceries. Not just food, good groceries. Name brands, peeled stickers, things you bring when you're trying to talk without saying, I'm still ashamed. She helped mix cornbread. Didn't talk much. But when I handed her the brown sugar and she accidentally spilled some, she froze. That's when I saw it. Still scared? Still unsure? Still wondering if she even deserved to laugh again? I took her hand and squeezed. Only once. You redeem folks better by walking beside 'em than judging from the porch, I told her. She whispered. I still hear your voice that day she slapped you. Still hear you say, go ahead, baby, I'll be right here, waitin'. I meant it, I said softly. How? How could you just sit there after that? I looked her in the eye and answered true. 'Cause sometimes love means letting M fall far enough that the ground teaches M what we can't. Outside, Mr. Harmon waved from his car. He came over every Friday now. Sometimes brought coconut cake from his church bake sale. Never stayed too long. Sometimes sat and listened to old records with Anya. He didn't try to fix nothing. Just let the silence do its thing. Then take that feelin', baby, make it your baseline. From now on, anybody trying to be your man gotta meet this porch first. We both laughed, soft. Mr. Harmon pulled into his driveway across the street. Waved as usual. I watched her eyes follow him. You think he ever gonna say something real? She asked. I shrugged. He already has. Like what? He's still here? And that's more than most folks ever offer after the flash fades. Later that night, after she went in, I pulled out the little envelope I kept in my Bible. It was the real wedding gift I'd set aside. A sealed letter marked with her name and one line of handwriting underneath. For when you remember who you are. I never gave it to her. Didn't need to. She'd already found it in herself. The next Sunday, we all showed up to church. No announcements, no spectacle. My niece came in between Dolores and Tasha, chin steady, eyes clear. She wore a plain yellow dress with flat shoes and a smile. Not a camera smile, a porch smile, a healed one. The kind you only get after you survive what should have broken you, and still know who you are without looking in anybody's mirror. During altar call, Mr. Harmon stood beside me. Didn't say no, just held my hand. Squeezed it once. I asked him later, out on the porch, what that was for. He said, for not yellin' when the world made you a warning. I shook my head. Ain't nobody praised the firefighters while the fire's still burnin', but once it's out, they remember who held the line. He smiled. You held the line, Ora. I looked out across my yard at the mailbox that once held the lone letter. At the curb that once parked the lie. At the walkway she came running down crying that night. And then I looked down at my hands. Still steady. Still clean. Still mine. So I parted my lips and said the only thing left to say, I ain't special. I'm just what happens when truth stays still long enough for love to circle back around. Final word from Ora Mae to the viewer. Now baby, if you're sitting here with me at the end of this story, I got a question for you. Have you ever held your tongue when your spirit was screamin'? Have you ever tried to shake somebody out a fairy tale they were begging to stay in? Have you ever been right and punished anyway? If so, leave a thought down in the comments. Don't wait for nobody to validate your wisdom. Just speak it. And if this story touched some part of you, the part you don't talk about in front of company, then leave a heart. Let me know I'm not alone out here. I tell real stories because real people still live in M. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae. You gon' find yourself in EM. Trust me. I've been that woman. Still am.